Hey, it's 2:33 a.m. I didn't say p.m., I said a.m. It is Thursday. I'm going to say Thursday night, but it's actually Thursday morning. And it's January 18th, Thursday, so I can't sleep. I've tried to go to bed early. I'm talking as low as I can because my son is sleeping downstairs. And he like complains every time I like walk upstairs or like if I'm walking around in my room. He says I stomp. Everybody's always told me that. Just about in every apartment I've ever lived where I'm like on the upstairs. I'm in denial of it or something. I guess I do have an issue when it comes to walking. I'm used to like just kind of living on my own. So my son being here, I don't get me wrong, I like him being with me, but it's just the fact that you get used to doing your own thing, and it's like I'm kind of like stomping around it. So I can't sleep tonight, and I keep thinking, well, maybe the upside of this, it could be that maybe I might have an astral projection later on, maybe. Okay, I do know that there has been times where, like I said, I can't control astral projection at all. I'm not somebody who masters it. It has always been like involuntary. But I was thinking that there's some times I do remember as an adult having these experiences where I'll go to bed late, and you know how you get into that like I wouldn't call it REM. It's another form state of where you're like kind of relaxed, but you're kind of open. You're kind of asleep and you're kind of awake. Okay, that kind of feeling. It's easier to detach. Meaning, like it. I mean, I had the experiences that I had that were astral were involuntary, but it seems like there's something about that particular hour that kind of shifts. But anyway, maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't. And if it doesn't, I guess I won't be disappointed. But I'm trying to keep myself busy, and I feel really bad because I let the day go. And I'm actually kind of ashamed of myself for being this way because I know my son comes home and I feel like I'm not doing anything, and I don't want him to know that I'm not doing anything, but it's quite obvious that I'm not doing it. I don't, you know what I mean? It's like I feel like because I'm his mother, I'm supposed to be setting some sort of example, even though he's 30 years old and I'm not responsible for him at all. It's just the fact that I don't want to make it negative. Like, I don't want to be negative. I don't want to, like, create this negative feeling to where, like, mom's just not feeling happy and that sort of stuff. So I just kind of keep myself in my room and, like, I don't want to, like I said, bad moods can be catchy, so let me just keep this all to myself. So it is pretty late tonight, and so I'm just kind of like thinking about, just different things. I was kind of like reviewing some things in my mind about, my personality and certain traits that I have that I'm looking back now. It's like, this makes total sense. I've always been somebody who's been obsessed with table manners. Now, mind you, my family never trained us to have table manners. My family, they weren't like that. They weren't formal in any way at all. Okay, but I've always been like somebody who wanted to like not just set the table properly, but also like conduct myself properly at the table. Now, mind you, I find table manners very tedious and they very frustrating because, I'm somebody who feels as though enjoying my food means like picking it up and eating it with my hands and like not having all those formalities that kind of slow me down. And also, um, yeah, it does kind of prevent me from enjoying the food because I'm more focused on like the food when I'm like eating all by myself and don't have to be mindful of particular manners. I just feel like there's I don't know, it's not like it's like I intuitively feel as though bad table manners in front of other people. This is me, okay? It's just in my mind, probably from a past life, that bad table manners in the presence of other people might ruin their appetite. It might, you know, it just seems kind of off, right? I also don't like dealing with unsightly things. Like once a plate has been used at the table, it should be removed like almost immediately because I find that unsightly. You know, I've always been very weird and nitpicky about certain things in my life, and now I'm starting to understand why. Because, like I said, my family, they basically ate like pigs, and they really didn't give a fuck about, any of those sort of like table manners or anything like that. But, I did post a video earlier. Um, well, actually, not earlier. It was actually yesterday, if you're going to be technical about it. It was yesterday. And, it was a picture of this guy in this British outfit. I guess I've always liked British clothes, but I also know that I've always told everyone that I've known that I've always had this love of the 1800s. Like, I love everything 1800s. Like, I like the women's clothing from that time period, even though the basic, I'm talking about people who lived in, like, of course, richer type, or I should say, people who had money, people who were very rich, okay, the way they dress. But when I look at their, like, people who wore, like, basic clothes, people who were, like, what do you want to call it, just working class people, even their women's clothes, for those people, okay, were, to me, had their certain level of beauty to it. You know what I mean? So I've always liked those things. And, the whole Prince Alamehu thing does tie into it. I'm waiting for, like, the flashbacks. Like, I'm understanding where my habits come from, but I'm waiting for, like, the flashbacks, like, moments of that I actually experienced as Prince Alamehu, I'm kind of looking forward to that. And I think it will happen. I know that it will because I've asked for it too, many, many, many years ago before I even knew who Prince Alamehu is. So, this part of my life I feel is really important for me to seek out spiritual answers that I've been burning to know for, like, my entire life. I am interested, of course, in the reincarnation process. I'm interested in, um, you know, you know, different lineages, like, not just mine, but people's in general. Like, when people talk about, who they're related to, all the way down, I find that fascinating because these traits get passed on to you, and then you wonder, some of them are acquired, and some of them are acquired not just in this life, but in their past life. And it's interesting to find out, like, where all this stuff comes from, putting the pieces together. Anyway, the other intuitive message I got is that, I know that I got this feeling that there was this huge religious campaign against me, but they were enforcing it in a very strange manner. Like, for example, I had mentioned that my sister Tanya and my brother Rashawn were participating in the targeting, and I don't know exactly how involved. I know Lisa was, like, arranging jobs and stuff like that, but I don't know exactly how involved she was in it. But there was this, like, it got to the point where it just seemed like people didn't have any freedom, and it was getting very scary. Like, they marked my father's house as, like, I guess maybe like an undesirable, like, thing to acquire or something, basically because of them not being a part of this religious group, which shocked the hell out of me because, okay, the thing is that I know that I was being persecuted for religious issues, but and it's like, excuse me, I honestly never realized that, number one, that my sister Tanya and Rashawn were attacking me, but I also didn't realize that something like this could happen in the United States. You know what I mean? Because it's not supposed to be that way. So it's like, it shocked me. And so when I think of, like, I know, like, if your house is haunted, like, if a house is haunted, I don't know if I've heard that realtors will disclose that information to people, okay? If it is, like, or like, for example, if it's built on, like, maybe an old, like, native burial ground or something, that might be a concern for the people who are going to be buying that property, so they will disclose that information and let them know that, right? I don't know that there's of any, like, I mean, other than my experiences as a kid, I don't know of any other paranormal activity that occurred at my family's house. Okay, I don't know what's going on with the house or anything. I was getting messages when I first realized, when I found out my mom was died and everything. I just figured the house was just gonna whatever. I wasn't even thinking about it. I was just thinking about getting the fuck away from my family and the memories of it. And I was adamant about that. But in like the last few months, I kept thinking, okay, I need to look into this because I kept getting this intuitive message to look into it. I don't know what's going on with it. I think there's some sort of court date going on the 24th or something like that. And I didn't really read over the whole thing. I did call the law office, but they never called me back because they always push these things off on me, right? They just whatever. But I got the notification in the mail, so I called the law office. I have not heard anything from them back, and I'm just throwing my hands up in the air because I can't do anything anyway. Even if I was to acquire the house, I couldn't move because I don't have any money. This is very frustrating for me, and not to like bring it up or anything, but it is very frustrating for me being in a situation not knowing what I'm doing and being able to make plans for myself. It's very, very frustrating. So I don't know. I feel like something very dark came over this whole issue with the whole religious campaign, because in this country, in the United States, we're allowed to have our freedom of religion, right? So even if my father was, like, my father never called himself a witch or anything like that. Of course, we come from a very esoteric type background, okay? So my father, it has his little ways about him. He had his ways about him, okay? Um, but he still had, even if my father was somebody who was dark, I mean, if he was into the dark arts, which he was not, okay? But even if he was, he would still legally have the right to have property. And then, like, the thing is that, if this is the case, that I'm getting this feeling about what's going on with this property, if this property is marked, I'm basically just moving, I would just basically be acquiring the house just until I die because it's basically worthless. It's not like I can go ahead. I mean, I would keep the house anyway, but it's not like the house would be really worth anything. You're deeming people's property worthless just because you're not a part of this religion that I really had no idea that I was being attacked. It's just the whole thing to me is just so it's so twisted, but whatever. But anyway, yeah, I'm not able to sleep tonight, so I was thinking about all these little messages that are coming to my mind. I get the feeling that, like, my old community that I was raised in, Lancaster, there's a lot of talk about me going on right now, about, these videos that I've been making and me unraveling everything, and people's eyes are opening to what really happened, and the whole picture. You know what I mean? So I think that's really cool. But you know, it's all a matter of your perspective and your reality. Like, my reality is that I was their kid, and my birthday was January 15th, 1971, and that I just knew that I was bullied, and I thought that I was bullied from my family, and I never realized how deep it is. But now it's like, now my reality is completely different. It's like I'm not who I thought I was. Yeah, I am, like, my personality and stuff like that, but there's a different history to my life, so it's like, it's a lot to adjust to. I'm trying to think if there's something else I wanted to say before I wrap up this video, because I'm not tired. I'm not tired, you know. I just feel like I actually have more energy right now, but maybe my sleep pattern is getting flipped around. That's a possibility, you know. things have been going, just things are just kind of weird right now, and um, I was hoping that I would be like more busy doing my content work consistently and having things moving. And so I do. It does. I hate to bring this up. I'm sorry, but it is extremely demoralizing to me because I have to. I've always been somebody who struggled. I've always struggled, and I'm tired of struggling. And there's just got to be a point in my life where I'm done. I'm done doing that. You know, um, I'm sorry that somebody wanted me to be something that I couldn't possibly be. I can't be that. You know what I mean? And it's something that what I don't like about um, this form of their religion that was being forced on me. Oh, what I didn't like about it was the fact that it was more of just like I said, like people using it as an excuse to bully me, but also it lacked any form of moral structure or like any sort of dogma that people really follow. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not somebody who like follows any rules or anything, but you would think that people would be more moral. They have higher standards of, of living, like how they treat other people, that sort of thing. It was just like a big bully club, jumping on Maria, and that's how I felt, and I'm very disappointed that it either, like I said, there's a lot of people who don't know. They hear something from somebody who is in a position of authority, and because education is what it is, okay, like I had mentioned, I had saw this video clip of this guy walking around asking random people on the street questions about history, and these are like really basic questions, and he asked this girl like what year was the United States formulated, and she was like 1902, and I like my mouth just dropped. It's like um, to me, when people heard that there was a religious campaign against me, okay, didn't anybody ever think back and think or fear that what is going on in our country if we're doing this? Like, if we're doing this, why are we doing this? Because according to what we've learned in history, you know, um, and civics, that's another class that you would learn this sort of thing in. You would learn that we are, the United States was formed to be separate from the oppression that they had, the religious oppressions that they had in England, right? Like I said, that's not the only reason, but they wanted to make sure that there was a separation between church and state because people used that because they feared the kind of control that could have. Just like, how people bullied me, that's what would happen if if it was under a sort of system to where it became intertwined between like the church and state or religious structure. So that's something that people would fear. You know what I mean? So it surprises me that nobody mentioned that. They just jumped on the bandwagon. You know what I mean? And if they did, because maybe they weren't aware. Like I said, I mean, people talk about education in this country like, it's more of a status symbol than than somebody who walks off with any acquired knowledge, which is what something that I saw through, you know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, when I was younger, I did make an effort to complete my schooling, but I've had problems, and dude, I've had so many friggin' problems. But my point is the fact that people go through this system and they don't have just like the basics down. They don't even have the basics down. They don't have somebody. I mean, I should be able to ask a third grader when this country was formulated. That's basic, and that's not me trying to cut this girl down, okay? Because she's probably only she doesn't care. Maybe the people who were supposed to be educating her weren't really giving her the stimulation that you do, whatever the case is. Sorry, the education system to me is broken. You know what I mean? Also, like, so if people, like I said, because they jumped on this bandwagon, if they didn't think for 1 minute that we're attacking somebody for their religious belief based on what they were supposed to have already known, which every citizen in this country should know that, um, then then you're just fucking outright evil, basically, because you're a terrorist, basically, is what you are. So, yeah, those are the little thoughts that are going through my head, and um, it just, there's so much that regurgitates in my mind. Like I carry so much of this whole issue all the time because of the time on my hands and the fact that I feel like I'm not moving forward. And I do everything I can to move forward. And I think some people, like, who are in this group, they don't understand. Like, there are people in the group that I feel didn't understand what my objectives were in life. Like, what are you doing? What? See, I basically, when I first moved here, I was working in accounting. That's where I started, okay? Because I needed to raise my son, and that was like the skill that I had. Well, obviously, my workplace was infiltrated with, well, yeah, I've been targeted all my life. So my employers were all like in this interconnected network, okay? So I got tired of like being bullied in the workplace. I got tired of being called in for fake job interviews. So it's like, well, you know what? I'm tired of being in the workplace, and I can't do it anymore. I can't take it anymore. I can't stomach it anymore. Just even talking about that environment sends off triggers. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why I kept thinking, well, what other alternatives do I have? I try to take responsibility for myself. I don't try to, look for the easy way out. I don't try to look for people to rely on. I know that the majority of people are very flaky, okay? Like, they're flaky. They forget things or whatever. And also, I don't ever want to be a burden on anybody. I understand in this life, we're responsible for ourselves. So, it's not me trying to, I don't know what people were thinking or thinking that we're devaluing my time. You know what I mean? I'm just somebody who has to do what they have to do. I don't have anyone to rely on but me. I'm all I have. You know what I mean? And some people say, oh, that's, like I said, you have a son. That's my point. I don't want to be one of those people who is a burden to their children. You know what I mean? And my son is very kind, and I do appreciate him doing what he's doing. But at the same time, it's like, um, I'm somebody who understands what it's like when somebody squashes your shit and you want to move on. You know what I mean? I'm not saying my son never treats me that way. He has always been really good to me. I really appreciate my son. He's a beautiful person, inside and out. Okay? But at the same time, I'm thinking what I want for my son is I want my son to fucking do what he wants to do. Every fucking goddamn thing he wants to do. Okay? Because I know life is short, and I know people squashed my goddamn life out. They squashed it. Okay? When I was in my 30s, I was oppressive. I was in an oppressive environment all the fucking time in the workplace, having a fucking nightmare. When I was in my 20s, same thing. All the way got down the line to when I was a little kid. So I value freedom. I value youth and the ability to take advantage of that time. You know what I mean? And I am very grateful. And I don't obstruct myself. Like, he comes and goes whenever he wants, okay, as he should. But at the same time, it's like, maybe he wants to go do more things, dating, of course, and stuff like that. But, it's just, I don't want to do that, so people don't understand my situation. And so they think, they start assuming things or whatever. Some people just have to deal with what they have to deal with. You know what I mean? I try to not make a big issue out of it, but when I was being targeted, I kept wondering what in the world's going on? Why is this happening to me? And I do know a lot of times women are single, they do get bullied, because some people just think it's funny if you're a certain age and you're not married or whatever. They think that's funny and they just want to point it out. But I know that my targeting has been going on longer than that. Like my targeting has been going on since childhood, right? Since I've since I moved to Lancaster, and actually my mother was bullying me too. So, and it's probably because of the experiment thingy or whatever. But anyway, you know, um, I didn't I didn't want to deal with the workplace. I can't stomach the workplace anymore. So I wanted to make provisions for myself, and I kept thinking, okay, well, maybe I can write content. I can write content for someone else, and I kept thinking, well, I really don't want to. I know I've always wanted to do, um, you know, instructional videos on the occult, and so this is what I've been wanting, and I've been wanting to do that for a very, very long time, and I kept thinking, well, I think I know more about that than I want to write about, than I want to spend my time writing about someone else's product or whatever. I don't want to talk about that. So I'm basically taking what I can do and flipping it around and doing something for myself that it's really beneficial, that I think is good for people. You know what I mean? And I'm in no way trying to change people's religion. I'm basically saying, hey, the occult is what caused religion. The occult is what creates religion. Because we know that the occult is actually dealing with these unseen forces that religion is based on. You know what I mean? It is. I mean, we're talking about supernatural. We're talking about an entity that is extremely powerful. And so, a religion, a lot of religion has kind of reduced itself more to like I said, social clubs, being a part of something, but not really understanding, that there is something greater than we are, and having that sort of fear and respect that they really should have. So no, and I do encourage people to, you know, be connected to whatever deity that they feel is that they're comfortable with, and I think, because I do believe that in some ways it's all universal, like it's all connected, even though the parts are separate. In some way it is connected, meaning that these occult sciences can be used in a very eclectic manner, you know what I mean? Because um, it's it's basically taking advantage of the forces of nature and bending it to your will. You know what I mean? And then just when you think about it, that's something that applies to everyone across the board. And so that's what I'm interested in doing. And, I think maybe some people, I know my perps, they like to follow me around and like kind of dissect everything that I do. But if you put this into perspective, I'm somebody who, who um, was destined to have a very difficult time. And now that am awake and understand what happened to me, I am very careful about, myself, and I'm very guarded, and I'm very protective of myself, as I should be, because I know that I was around a lot of abusive people that I didn't want to be around. And a lot of these people, some of these people I don't even know. Like, I've never seen their face, but I do understand, the pyramid type thing. I do understand that, but I'm not comfortable with that, So, um, what people, I'm angry at the disrespect and the disregard for my life, when people are on top, this is what I don't like about um, these so-called quote unquote like conservative people, people who look down on people who are like me. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with being prosperous. There's nothing wrong with having money. There's nothing wrong. But they like to create unfair competitions. You know what I mean? And they like to literally keep people down. And they think it's funny. It's not funny. You know what I mean? But it's funny to them because this was created by a very warped individual in the first place. You know what I mean? So like I said, that negative attitude just kind of trickles down the pyramid. And it gets, I would never obstruct somebody from trying to get a job. I would never obstruct somebody who obviously needs to make a living. You know what I mean? And I understand people think, well, you can just get married. You can just get, I'm not, I'm not sitting here looking for somebody to support me. I'm not sitting here, um, um, I've always wanted to carry my own weight for my own protection. You know what I mean? I fear being abused. And all I've ever known was abuse. You know what I mean? I don't know any decent, I've never dealt with any decent people. So it's like, what other people don't understand, I mean, what they overlook is that issue. And it's a big issue. And it's kind of like, man, it's really kind of thoughtless for people not to consider the fact. Maybe people never did consider that fact, but look at I have no one to fall back on except for me. You see what I'm saying? And I always knew this. I always knew this. So, I'm not somebody who's doing it because I'm trying to stick up for women's rights. It just so happens that I'm in this situation, and it is a woman's right issue because if a woman is being abused, whether that be through her partner or maybe her mother and father or whatever, she needs to be able to take care of herself, and she has the right to have that sort of protection. I did talk to, well, I didn't really, it wasn't really a conversation, but this person left a comment on one of my videos about I believe it was I want to say a superintendent or something. And anyway, it was like within a school district, okay? And this lady was telling me that there was one of the board members, I guess, or at the education school, whatever, was being harassed, and that people were standing up for her because, people were playing the "let's get her fired" type game. And I committed the lady because, too many people see this sort of stuff going on in the workplace. They see that people are getting bullied. In this case, this woman was a woman, okay? And because she must have been somebody who takes care of herself, meaning she must dress nice, she must present herself well. She should never have to apologize for that. And people want to bully her for those sort of things. And, what this lady was saying is I wanted to follow up with her on this conversation because she had mentioned that there's some sort of new workplace, I don't know, maybe they implemented some sort of thing that I'm not aware of because I completely dropped out of that whole, work rights issue type stuff. I haven't been reading up on it in a while because I decided I'm never going back. I don't want to go back, but I want to know what they're talking about still. Like, are people starting to wake up to this bullshit that's going on? What was used to be acceptable, you know what I mean? It was acceptable, but it wasn't acceptable on paper. It has always been illegal to bully somebody for sexual harassment. It has always been that way. Okay, so this is kind of like now are people starting to wake up what that really means, like what that really entails. You know what I mean? And I'm glad that people are, instead of turning a blind eye to people's suffering, that people are actually standing up for the person who's being bullied. That's really good because, sometimes it's the person who has the ability to make that difference is actually more guilty than the person who's actually initiated. They have the ability to stop it. You know what I mean? But anyway, I think I have said everything I needed to say, so I'm going to wrap up this video. I am not tired yet. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. Who knows? But one thing's for sure, I'm not going to continue making this video because I've run out of things to say. So have a good night. Goodbye.